Hello world, this is Random Fix, and in this video today we're going to be discussing the Jaguar drive cycle procedure for any 1996 and newer Jaguar. You are going to need one of these OBD2 readers, which I'll have a link to in the video description down below. You're going to need to connect this to your vehicle's OBD2 port. Mine happens to be the white one. I'll show you what yours looks like on the screen. It might be hidden underneath a cap, some trim, but it will be in the driver's side footwell area. Once you slide it in, you're going to notice that you get power, and once that unit has power, go ahead and turn the vehicle ignition on. So the check engine light will be on, but the motor is not running. And with your ignition on, you're going to be able to now scan your vehicle and check the monitors so you can go ahead and get your vehicle to pass the emissions test. And I'm going to cover this with you guys in depth. So let's go ahead and get the video started. And before we jump into the drive cycle, check out the Smog Tips playlist. And once you click on the playlist, you can actually watch the whole drive cycle in process, where I'm going to show you how to do this on the road. And if you need further assistance on how to understand these inspection monitors, check out this video titled "What to Do to Smog a Car." Hello world, this is Random Fix, and in this video today we're going to be discussing the drive cycle procedure for a 1996 and newer Jaguar. I'm going to go ahead and show you how to do that in this video. And before we actually jump into the drive cycle procedure, we got to discuss some basic vocabulary. And when you see the term OBD2 used during this drive cycle, please know that it's referring to the onboard diagnostics Type 2. This started in 1996, and before 1996, each vehicle manufacturer had their own port. You had to buy sometimes a special connector for each particular make. This whole thing was a mess. So now for less than 30 bucks, you can buy one of these OBD2 readers, and you can scan most vehicles that are 1996 and newer and figure out what's happening with them. And the way you figure out what's happening with the vehicle is by retrieving the diagnostic trouble code. That's what DTC stands for. And there's two kinds of trouble codes for the engine module. And one of them is going to be a pending code. And then there's a hard set code. A hard set code is one where the computer knows about the issue, is verified it, and has triggered the check engine light on. And a pending code is one where the engine light is not on, but the computer knows about it. It's detected the issue. It just needs more information before it triggers the check engine light. And if you're running across an issue with your Jaguar where the vehicle's check engine light is turning on within milliseconds of starting after you've reset the code, you may have some sort of issue with the broken or damaged wire. It could have some open a circuit out there that's basically letting the vehicle detect that issue right away. So if you're encountering that, please fix that issue first. And once that issue is fixed, then attempt to do the drive cycle, because no matter how many times you do this, if there's a pending code or you have a real issue with the vehicle, you will not get it ready. MIL stands for malfunction indicator light, aka the check engine light, the service engine light, the service engine soon light. When you're using an OBD2 reader, like I showed you in the beginning of the video, you're going to see OK. And OK basically means the same exact thing as it's complete, set, and ready. And when the OBD2 reader displays INC, that's short for incomplete, unset, and not ready. When NA is displayed next to a monitor, that means it doesn't apply to your vehicle. Go ahead and skip that monitor. And right here I have 5 monitors that are listed in the order that they normally set in. So the very first monitor to set is going to be the oxygen sensor heater monitor. The oxygen sensor heater helps the oxygen sensor get up to speed faster so it can do a better job of controlling the emissions. So making sure that the oxygen sensor heater sets is very important, because A lot of the other monitors will rely on this particular monitor to set before they can get ready. Second monitor to normally set is the oxygen sensor. And there's two kinds of oxygen sensors. There's one that's before the catalyst, that's known as a pre-cat or an upstream oxygen sensor. And there's one after the catalytic converter known as a post-cat or downstream oxygen sensor. You have the EGR monitor here. You have the CAT monitor. The catalytic converter is the part, and the CAT that's displayed on the OBD2 reader is the monitor. We have EVAP, and EVAP stands for the Evaporative Emissions Control System. And in short, this keeps the gas fumes out of the atmosphere. As a helpful tip, when you're doing this test, you want to go ahead and use a stopwatch so you can better time everything. Here's some technical parameters for your vehicle. Make sure that the check engine light is really off and there's no stored codes. You want to have the gas level between 1/4 to 3/4. 3/4 recommended, and park on level ground. Avoid sudden acceleration, sharp turns, or sudden braking. I like to avoid hills because it keeps the fuel from basically sloshing around in the rear of the tank, and it helps get the monitor ready faster if I'm not driving on a hill. You want to make sure your vehicle has a proper battery and that the charging system is working correct. So check all the grounds and everything else if you're running across an issue and your vehicle is not getting ready. You want to turn off all the accessories like the defrost. Make sure that the lights are off. Have the AC off. Avoid extreme conditions as far as the weather, and also avoid rough roads. And higher altitude might keep certain monitors from basically setting. The night before you conduct the test, what you want to do is lock the car, keep the keys way far away from your Jaguar, because a lot of the new vehicles will basically sense the keys. And if the vehicle doesn't go into a real deep sleep, what will happen is certain monitors like the oxygen sensor heater monitor may not run. And if that monitor doesn't get ready, you're going to have a really hard time setting the emissions drive cycle. So this is the actual drive cycle here, and some of the requirements that we talked about earlier. Cold start, air temperature, you want to have below 86 degrees. Fuel level is going to be at 3/4 of a tank. Park on level ground. Don't use the cruise control, and have the AC off. You're going to begin off with step 1. You're going to start the engine, and you're just going to let it idle. So make sure your foot doesn't touch the accelerator. You don't move the vehicle. You want to make sure that the defrost, AC, radio are off. And do this until the engine coolant temperature reaches 160 degrees. And you can overdo this by 5 or 10 minutes and you're going to be okay. So if you want to let it just idle for 20 minutes, you're going to be okay doing that. And step 2, you're going to now accelerate to speeds of between 40 to 55 miles an hour using quarter throttle. And you want to drive obviously on a level road and maintain that speed of between 40 to 55 miles an hour for at least 5 minutes. And you want to be in your highest gear. Make sure if your vehicle has a selector mode for power or economy that you're just in the standard mode. That really does make a difference on certain vehicles. In step 3, you're going to slow down. And the way you slow down is very important here. All you want to do is remove your foot off the gas pedal and get your speed to under 20 miles an hour. When you're coasting to under 20 miles an hour, do not use the brake pedal or shift gears. And once you stop the vehicle, you want to go ahead and let it idle in gear for 1 minute. So that's D for automatics, neutral for manual transmission vehicles. Then you want to do an additional minute in park. And if you have a manual transmission, you're going to leave it in neutral again. You want to turn the engine off. You want to go ahead and wait 1 minute. And after 1 minute is up, you want to go ahead and restart the engine. Once the engine is restarted, you're going to jump to step 4, which is basically going to be accelerating again. You're going to get up to speeds between 40 to 55 miles an hour using that quarter throttle. And you now want to go ahead and keep that speed for at least 2 minutes. And in step 5, you're going to go ahead and now slow down again. But instead of coasting, you're going to use the brake pedal to go ahead and get your speed down to 0. Once you're stopped, you're going to go ahead and idle in gear for 1 minute. And then once that minute's up, you're going to do an additional 1 minute in park, turn the engine off. And once the engine is off, you want to wait 1 minute. And after the minute's up, you want to use that OBD2 reader that I showed you in the very beginning of the video to check the inspection monitors on the vehicle. And when you get back from your test drive, you want to scan it. And if everything is done, it'll say 0 codes incomplete, 7 that are complete, and 4 that don't apply, and 0 codes found. And this is a 100% chance that you're going to go ahead and pass your emissions tests as long as you haven't altered anything on your vehicle and your vehicle passes the visual inspection as well, which I'll cover a little bit later. And as a helpful hint, you want to go ahead and focus on any monitor that's unset. So if you got all the monitors set except for the EVAP, you want to continue to perform this drive cycle here one more time and see if you can get that EVAP monitor to set. The more your vehicle ages, the more miles you drive, you'll notice that certain monitors like the catalyst and the EVAP actually get harder to set. So one of the things that I like to do is continue to drive in a way that actually supports those monitors. So for the EVAP, make sure that the gas level is always between a quarter to 3/4 of a tank. Park on level ground. You want to avoid those sudden stops, those hills. And if your catalyst isn't not ready, you want to focus more on the high-speed driving after you've had a proper warm-up. If your EGR monitor is not set, you want to go ahead and focus more on the coasting cycle here in step 3. If your oxygen sensor is not setting, you want to focus more on the actual warm-up on step 1. And the same exact thing for the oxygen sensor heater. Step 1 is very important. And so you want to let the vehicle idle, especially if the temperature is extremely cold. You want to maybe even let it idle a little bit longer. And also, certain vehicles were actually produced by Ford. So the S-Type, the X-Type, even the XJ were produced by Ford. So you may want to check out the Ford drive cycle, and I'll have a link to that in the video box down below. So you can go and check that out because that will help you a little bit more than these drive cycles. And one other thing is we're going to cover some monitors individually. And so right here I have the oxygen sensor heater monitor, and in case you're running into an issue with an oxygen sensor not getting ready, here's the directions, and I'll post this in the video description down below so you guys can check those out. And for the catalyst, this is the drive cycle for that monitor. So if your catalyst is having a hard time, you want to go ahead and complete this. And I'll include this in the video description down below as well, if possible. Hey guys, really quick, if you're finding this video to be helpful and you're enjoying the content, please consider hitting that thumbs up button and subscribing to the channel as well, as it lets YouTube and me know that I'm doing a good job and bringing you guys value content. Thanks. And once your monitors are set, you're ready to now go and get the vehicle smogged. Remember, if your vehicle is a 96 through 99 vehicle, you will have to get the vehicle tested on a dyno at 15 and 25 miles an hour. They're going to use a gas analyzer to test the vehicle's emissions. They're going to test your gas cap. They'll do some other tests, and they're also going to do a visual. Even if you have a 2000 and newer vehicle, they're going to do a visual. But on a 2000 and newer vehicle, they're just going to check for the OBD2 readiness. So they're going to plug in their OBD2 reader into the vehicle from the state and check the monitors. Remember, the visual inspection consists of checking for altered parts like cold air intakes, throttle spacers, cracked vacuum hoses, missing catalytic converters. They're going to do a visual smoke test to make sure that you don't have clouds of smoke coming out the tailpipe. And as of the end of 2020, this is the current rules here for California. And California happens to be one of the stricter states. So you have to check the regulations for your own state. Here in California, if you have a 96 through 99 vehicle, you can have any one monitor show incomplete and still pass. Now, depending on the Smog station, they may just go ahead and plug in their OBD2 reader is not connected to the state, see that you have a monitor that's incomplete, and tell you to keep driving, because they don't want anything to come back to them to show that on their record for the shop showing that they passed X amount of vehicles with unset monitors. So if that happens to you, go to another station. And if you have a 2000 and newer vehicle, only the EVAP could be unset. And with diesel powered vehicles 98 through 2006, basically all the monitors have to show complete. On newer diesel vehicles 2007 and newer, you can have any two monitors show incomplete. And remember, when you're selling a car, it's the seller's responsibility to make sure that they supply the buyer with a Smog certificate. And normally there's no way of waiving this requirement unless you're selling to a dealer or dismantler. So even if you write as is on the title, that doesn't really mean anything, because if it goes to court, you're most likely going to lose that suit unless they're a dealer or a dismantler. And if you're a buyer, never buy a vehicle unless all the inspection monitors are ready. And 99% of the times, if the inspection monitors are not ready, is because somebody has erased that check engine light on purpose to cover up an existing issue, whether it's a dealer or a private seller. And 1% of the time is caused by a weak or faulty battery. And if this is the case, you still have to find out why that battery is dying, because you could have a potential short, you could have an alternator. And when there's a bad battery in a vehicle, all kinds of funny things start happening, from smog emissions monitors not getting ready to transmissions acting up, and it's a big list of potential issues. I'm going to show you guys the configuration on a typical 4-cylinder vehicle here. And on a typical 4-cylinder vehicle, you have 2 oxygen sensors and 1 catalytic converter. So here's the vehicle here. This is the engine. And as the exhaust makes it out the engine block through the headers, downpipe, and it will go past this upstream oxygen sensor, which is known as the pre-CAT oxygen sensor. And then the exhaust will go through the catalytic converter here. Then the downstream or post-CAT oxygen sensor will go ahead and get a reading. And the way the computer is able to verify the efficiency of the catalytic converter here is by taking this reading and this reading and comparing them based on the parameters of what the vehicle manufacturer has set up to verify that this in fact is working correctly. And after the emissions pass the downstream oxygen sensor, it goes through a little resonator here, down through the tailpipe, through the muffler, and out to the atmosphere. And here on a 6-cylinder or 8-cylinder, I'm going to show you guys a couple of diagrams down here. On these, you can have 3 or 4 oxygen sensors depending on the setup, and 1 or 2 catalytic converters. So if we look at this diagram right here, this is a V6 motor. So it has a total of 6 cylinders, 3 on one side, 3 on the other side, thus making it a V6 motor. And whatever side cylinder number 1 is located on, that's called bank 1. So if you're dealing with an emissions issue and it tells you that sensor 1 on bank 2 is bad or acting up, you can look at the opposite side of cylinder 1 and know that this is the opposite side. This sensor right here that may potentially need to get replaced. So we have 1, 2, 3 oxygen sensors on this vehicle and 1 catalytic converter. And this too is a V6 motor. The only difference is the cylinder number 1 is located on the lower side here, and this is bank 1, and now this is bank 2. And here on this setup here, this is a V6 motor, and we have a total of 6 cylinders again, 3 on one side, 3 on the other side. But now we have 1, 2, 3, 4 oxygen sensors, and 1, 2 catalytic converters. And if it was a V8, it would just have an extra cylinder on each side. And here's my top 8 tips to pass an emissions test. The very first one is going to be make sure that you smog right the very first time. So if you know your vehicle has an issue, you want to make sure to get that issue fixed before you try to go and smog the vehicle. And you should never really fail an emissions test, because with these simple scan tools, you can verify that all the monitors are ready. And before you go to the station, you can just do a simple plug-in and it'll let you know that the car's inspection monitors are ready. And you can do this with confidence, knowing that you're going to go and pass now, because any failed emissions data will get reported to Carfax and AutoCheck, and this can actually reduce the value of your vehicle. Number 2, you want to make sure that the check engine light is off but working. So before you purchase a vehicle, put the key in the ignition and turn it to the very last position and verify that the check engine light is there. And I've seen people actually remove the check engine light. 3, this really helps with those 96 through 99 vehicles. You want to make sure that the tires are properly inflated, as this will lessen the load and will allow vehicle better operations. The same thing with the oil here. The oil actually contains a lot of the hydrocarbons, and since they're going to be doing a real emissions test using a gas analyzer, you want to make sure you reduce the hydrocarbon numbers here, and this is a simple oil change. And tip 5, you want to go ahead and take the vehicle for a very long test drive before you reach the emission station, and leave the car on if possible before you get it tested with the emissions probe. Tip number 6, use some fuel additives. I personally love the Lucas Oil upper cylinder loop. You'll find a link to this in the video box below, as well as anything else that I showed you guys in the video. Tip number 7, you want to avoid wet weather, and this is not to say that you cannot pass an emissions test with it raining outside. However, you'll just get much better results if the tires are dry. And tip number 8, do not disconnect the battery unless you have a battery saver device set up, and these are about $15. And basically this will keep your car's computer data, your clocks, your radio stations all in sync. And remember, the only real solution oftentimes is to repair or replace the component. So there's no such thing as a miracle in a bottle. But if you're looking for a quick fix for your catalytic converter, just because maybe you don't have the time or money to go and have that issue fixed, I have a couple of videos down in the video box below that cover such products, and I'll give you guys my honest and truthful review of them and some preventative tips here. I love doing everything myself, so if you can try doing some of the simpler repairs yourself, like the engine oil changes, transmission fluids, differentials, changing the filters, the engine air filter, the cabin air filter, the fuel filter, if you clean your throttle body, change the wipers, and do the brakes on your own vehicle. This is such a nice thing to start doing, because the more you learn about a vehicle, the better off you're going to be as far as taking care of it. And what I have found out from my own experience of working on cars over the last 27 years is the time that I actually save doesn't even compare to the amount of money, because a lot of people go and get their oil changed at the dealer and that could take 1 hour or 2 hours. Most of the times I'm able to change the oil on my vehicle in under 15 minutes. So not only did I save between 60 to 80 bucks, but I saved myself at least 45 minutes of not having to wait around, and I got it done and I can go move on with my life. So I hope the video helped you guys out. If it did, please comment down below and let me know how it went. I would really appreciate your feedback. And if you guys are new to the channel, consider hitting that subscribe button right here in the right bottom corner. So anytime I post videos, you guys will get notified. Thanks again. And if you need additional help, please don't hesitate to check out the Smog Tips playlist. And on the Smog Tips playlist, I have videos covering all the different monitors, some cheats for the catalysts, because the catalytic converters on these vehicles are very expensive. And have a great day.